the psychology of pricing in a premium brand, first and foremost, it's aspirational. You can't ever lose the aspirational nature of your product if you're premium. And that aspiration is different. At Fender, we used a metric called share of stage to measure our brand health, saying how many people are playing Fender guitars on Coachella stages, Lollapalooza. We would actually systematically measure that. Wow. And that was a measure of brand health in terms like how effective was our brand marketing. So you had to keep that aspiration. And so for us at Fender, share of stage kept the aspiration alive. What is everyone else doing? I think that that's something that a lot of entrepreneurs in the D2C space don't do enough of, is just look at the area around you. What are other people in your category doing and what are they pricing out? I don't think enough of that happens. But also, what does your consumer see as a reasonable step up to get the quality and the value and the prestige of owning that premium product, right?
Okay, so I've been in Vegas right now for, I think, like 5 hours. I've used toilet paper at the Mandalay Bay. I've used it at the Vidara. I've stayed at nice hotels like luxury Ritz-Carlton, boutique luxury hotels. I've stayed at like low end, like a Fairfield Inn, like, budget friendly. Nobody has nice toilet paper.
Always one ply, right?
Like, it's just garbage.
Do you think 1 ply versus 2 ply versus 3 ply versus 4 ply and all these different things costs a big difference?
Well, it has to, right?
It has to.
It has to be
so much that it creates
thing.
a margin problem, or maybe there's a theft problem. Maybe people steal it when you've got nice toilet paper.
I mean, people took the shampoo bottles and the conditioners.
Oh, and this is why they've gone to pumps.
And that's why they have
now.
the pumps.
Interesting.
They blamed it on COVID, but then they were like, "Oh wow, our bottom line's better."
I could tell you that at Sky Suites at the Aria, they actually have bidets in their toilets.
Which is nice, but what about the toilet paper?
I don't think it's that much nicer.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Have
you ever experienced good toilet paper at a
Not at a hotel. Definitely not. At scale, there's got to be some massive savings.
I mean, that's got to be a cost difference. There must be such a cost difference behind that.
I mean, given how many rooms, guests, and everything they have.
And how many rolls
but think
they
about
use.
the experience of your butt.
I guess. But some
I got a little laugh from you. A little laugh.
But some hotel rooms have bidets now, like high end.
Yeah, okay.
It's become more socially acceptable.
Jimmy, you want to do this?
All right. We're going to shoot this. Where we were talking toilet paper in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Awesome Pod, where we talk a lot. E-com is the path that we walk a lot. From 4 point of views when we're talking shop. Amir from the agency and Jimmy from SAS. John has an Android, but give him a pass. Cause he's an operator building brands like a carpenter. And that's Brian, he is the marketer. Like I said, this the Awesome Pod, where we talk a lot. E-com is the path that we walk a lot. From 4 point of views when we're talking shop.
What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the Awesome Pod, a show about perspective from the eyes of an agency, SaaS operator, and marketer focused on the D2C, e-commerce, and retail space. All right, I want to go ahead and introduce, we've got a special guest here today on this pod here, but first things first, we've got John Roman, the Android-loving survival king, co-founder and CEO of BattleBox. What's up, John? How are you?
Man, we're in Vegas, my favorite city.
I know, the best city, right?
Can't be bad.
We're talking about best city. We've got Amir Grasinic, the Prince of Bosnia, Mayor of Chicago. How are you, man? Are you feeling good?
I'm feeling good. I'm almost Vegas out.
Are you?
You've been here for like 8 days.
I've been here for 4 days.
Because you love it so much.
Yeah,
so you've enjoyed your time so
and
much.
You have another 5 here.
Yeah. 4 more days.
Oh, so 9 total?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a stretch.
He's living.
That's a marathon in Vegas.
He's living. He's living.
I'm feeling it.
Because he's starting to realize.
Do you ever, how often do you end up, are you ever on this trip?
Voluntarily, never. Jimmy dragged me here.
Yeah. But I understand that. Like,
all right. With that, let's introduce our guest here. We've got Greg Dalby, the D2C musician with 18 years. I think it's 18 years, yeah?
Coming up on 20. Yeah.
Okay. 20 years of e-commerce experience. He's the SVP at Wobbles, the leading crochet kit brand that won't leave me alone on social media anymore.
It's actually Woobles, Jimmy.
Woobles?
Woobles.
Oh, man.
get it right.
Man.
Pay the price.
Actually, I don't think I've ever seen them talk about their actual name. No, did they ever
There's this concept of whether words are round or square.
Woobles.
And the Woobles is a very round sounding
Woobles.
word. And all of our characters are very round and soft and cute and fluffy.
They are very cute.
And I saw last night, we were in bed with my wife before I left this morning, and I saw a Woobles and Barbie commercial. And like, she's like half asleep. I'm like, look,
Look,
it's Woobles.
look at this.
I kid you not, it's the first product. So Greg and I got introduced to Jimmy on X, and I told Eleni, my fiance, about it. The next, maybe second, third day, she was crocheting one of the woobles. And like,
We'll get you.
Nice.
We'll get you.
Yeah.
as soon as she saw it, she's like, I gotta
That's
have
all
it.
it took, huh?
It was fun. It was a good time for
Did
her.
she make it? Did she
Yeah.
make the wooble?
Yeah, she made
Interesting.
it.
Do you
Yeah.
guys
What's-
call like when you make woobles? Is it a woobling?
So we have this
Wooblers?
Well, yeah, it's like wooblers, and you're woobling. We like that idea. We also have this concept. That's not something we made up, but there's this idea of fiero, the idea of doing something that you didn't think possible. So that feeling of I don't know how to do this thing. We guide you through that process and give you that feeling of fiero at the end. So
Which is a great experience.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a really
And
powerful
she's never
piece.
crocheted before.
Yeah.
She did it by herself.
Pretty proud. Is
Yeah.
there an age group for this?
You know, we don't specifically target any particular age group, but we do stay above 12 years old just because there's needles that come with
Yeah,
the
got
crochet
it.
kits. So
It could be a problem.
yeah, so we definitely target
Okay.
an older audience, but it's
So
our
not for
normal,
my 6-year-old.
No, not for 6-year-olds.
Okay.
Yeah. We're working on stuff that may be viable
Plastic,
for that. Yeah.
plastic ones, or maybe.
Can't talk about
Okay,
it. It's
can't
very
talk
secret.
about it. All right.
Yeah.
Well, with that, my name is Jimmy Kim, the moderator, the brain, the man of the people, and the email dude here today. And with that, if you're listening to this pod and you want to hear unfiltered hot takes from the team here, well, you can jump in and subscribe to awesomepod.com to be alerted and join our future newsletters. We drop hot takes each and every week. All right. We talked about toilet paper in the beginning of this pod, and I think it actually dives right into today's segment, which is we're talking about pricing, actually. And I think there's a little bit somewhere in there, we've got some psychology that comes into place. And really, we're talking about how it's affecting how consumers buy. And a perfect example I posted on social media that got a bunch of people talking about this recently is Apple charges $29 for a cord, but you can buy the $9 generic cord, but yet most people opt in to buy the $29 cord. And when it comes to pricing, why do we see sometimes brands charge 3 times more essentially for the same product and still have a loyal buyer ultimately? Anyone have thoughts on that right away?
Oh, so before I jump in, so what Jimmy does, and he's great at it, he sometimes gives us these assignments. So one of my assignments was bring a book about psychology of pricing to the pods.
Which you read.
Well, I usually have a book or two that I can reference right away. I actually didn't have a book it's more of like economics of pricing, not psychology of pricing. So I went kind of down this hunt and I found this incredible book that I'll share later that dives into psychology. But now I didn't only read that book. For the last almost 2.5, 3 weeks, I've been reading research papers on
You were
psychology.
talking about it and like
It is so-
referencing all these.
Yeah, it is
Yeah.
incredibly interesting. And I feel in e-commerce specifically, we don't focus on the psychology of pricing enough. We over-obsess about economics of pricing. And I think that has to balance out a
fair
little bit
point.
better.
What about you, John? What do you think about pricing?
I think your example of the Apple cord, I'll self-admit that the Samsung cord is a very similar, economic proposition. And I end up buying the $9 one.
Do you buy the cheaper one?
I do. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll
Do you
buy the
find that
5-pack of
Quality's any
different
different?
sizes. No.
Interesting.
But I don't think I'm the average consumer in that sense. I think
This is true. You do drive
people
you
don't
do
even-
use an Android.
Let's do a little Android.
Another Android
Another
user. We keep messing up.
Wow.
Damn it. This
Back
is all
to
Brian's fault.
Yeah.
This is all. So we have a joke. Obviously, you heard the Android loving. We usually pick
It's
on
normally
John.
3 versus 1.
Yeah.
I'm even in the score for you.
John. But no, but Anthony was
And
on
Anthony
that.
was
It
too, so-
also
Brilliant.
This has been a great night.
Yeah, I know. He's winning the lottery over
Yeah.
here. But yeah, man, I mean, I think when I see the cords, and this is my personal, and maybe it's wrong, but I always feel like the $29 outperforms the $9 cord.
Well, you know what's weird to that though, too? We used to not even have to buy it.
This is true. They used
Yeah.
to give it to you
Yeah.
for free.
That's a bigger problem.
So they accessorize. We have the hero product, whether it's a Samsung or an Apple, and now every single piece is separate. And 20 years ago, you buy one, you get everything, and Apple makes a ton of money on their accessories. That's a big percentage of their.
I think though, to your point, there's the $129 if we're talking about Apple devices, or the $129 if we're talking about Android, Samsung, or Google, right? And they all have their flagship. But in the $9 category, it's not like there's a couple options.
There's a lot.
There's thousands
Yeah.
of options. And I think your view is you might have tried one, right? And it's a lower end product. I think there's high quality products at the $9 that are will be comparable and perform in the same way. I also think there's ones on the $9 side that aren't. It's I think it's a big delta.
Pop up, it's Alia, driving down the lane. From Nike to Plunge, they're running the game. 900 brands, yeah, they know the name. Support so fire, puts others to shame. Real A/B tests with insights to match. Fast load times like a lightning patch. Book a demo now and don't miss the deal. Get 30 days free and a 20% steal. Big shout out to Alia, an app that is revolutionizing how brands turn website visitors into loyal customers. With some of the highest performing pop-ups in e-com, Alia is helping brands ditch traditional web forms and double down on education, personalization, and conversion. We highly recommend you check out Alia at alialearn.com today and let them know Awesome sent you.
Greg, what do you think?
I was thinking about this after reviewing the notes this week, and I think one piece that's kind of not touched on in the notes is the psychology of merchandising, right? And as we think about the way that merchandising plays a difference in pricing, it's about being in the moment, right? And a really good example of that is the car buying experience, right? I've owned a couple of Porsches, and I've never spent more money on Porsche accessories than when I'm at the dealership buying the car, right?
Yeah.
I don't care that the keychain is $100 because I just dropped whatever amount.
At this point, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's like so there's a very big psychology of merchandising and the way that we position products and that. So that's a big reason is being in the moment, the excitement of that brand moment. And you think about, there's really no better moment for Apple to engage with that when you're buying a new phone. That's probably the peak of your excitement about the brand, is the moment that you're holding that phone in your hand. You've got all your data on there. Do you want the $30 charging cable with it? Absolutely, throw it in. I'm downloading my contacts.
I just spent $1,200 on a phone or whatever.
Yeah,
right now
you're spot on. I'm thinking about the last time I was at the AT&T store to get the new phone, and they're like, "Do you want this?" And I'm like, I mean, it's a $1,200. I spent $1,200 on a phone. Like, yeah, give me the $50 that I can buy for $15 on Amazon.
Wow. And you could do it right there on your phone while you're there and go to Amazon, but there is a psychological moment. And I think this is something that brands that are really good at merchandising capitalize on, is understanding the peak of the emotional connection of when during the ownership cycle is the peak happening.
Yeah. And when to...
I don't think owning an Apple phone is better than buying it, frankly. I think people get really excited about buying it and the unboxing. I don't think that people are as excited about the phone and owning it. It's like, yeah, it's a phone. It does what it does. Yeah. But unboxing an Apple product is undeniably
it's an experience.
Phenomenal.
I mean, I know
experience.
everyone's caught up now, but there was a moment when Apple unboxing was the thing. Like, it was like Apple devices just unboxed better than everybody else did. At one point, I'm not saying today and maybe anymore, but at the early days, it was like this tight little package where you would open it up. Everything was layered perfectly. The peel that you would take off that screen was always so perfect and crisp, right?
Yeah, there's people making YouTube videos from an ASMR perspective on it.
This is true. Yeah. So let me go into the next question. The first real question. So where does actual utility and perceived brand value begin in a customer's mind? I'm talking about, why do people pay more for a sense of trust, community, and prestige ultimately? What are your thoughts there?
I can start this one
off.
off.
Go ahead.
I mean, look, brand is the moat for so many companies, right? And whether we're talking about Nike or Apple or any others, like, the brand is the moat. What's the real difference between these Nike shoes and the Adidas shoes? And I don't know, you're wearing Pumas maybe?
Kohan.
Oh, there we go. What's the difference between them? Nothing really fundamentally, right? But there's a feeling of community. I'm part of a tribe. I'm part of a group of people who either care about sports, or I care about fashion, or I care about luxury. And defining those characteristics of your brand and your ideal consumer is what allows you to have pricing elasticity, right? And why people would be doing that. So I think it goes back to those moments of engaging your pricing strategy based on, where am I hitting my customer in that emotional journey with the brand. In terms of utility, it's all perception, right? Every decision we make as consumers is based on emotion, right? And I think that a lot of marketers, I think you're hitting on here, there's a lot of talk about pricing economics in the D2C world, but probably not enough about how much more profit could you make if you just marked something up $5 from where it is today, right? And we've been doing some of that testing at the Woobles. We can talk about that later, but we've been doing some price elasticity testing on Amazon, and the results have been pretty eye-opening for us. So, I think that a lot of smaller brands don't think about that enough. They think about, what do I need? What's the minimum I can sell something for in order to have, especially these days, a profitable cash-generating business, but not what's the ideal point. And it goes back to like my business school economics classes where they're talking about, break-even points and diminishing returns. And it's like that's the exercise you have to go through.
And until we've started talking about this, you called it out and you just echoed it. I mean, it's true. Like when we're looking at pricing, the uber majority of our pricing decisions are all economic based.
Yeah.
It's also feeling based too, emotionally based.
Do you know what, like I get flabbergasted. So you have, I'm going to talk about from an entrepreneurial standpoint, not even a brand standpoint. You have a lot of entrepreneurs we work with, they, 5, 10, 20 million, $30 million, and they started companies from scratch. They were not afraid to quit their job, go in debt, and go on this crazy journey of building a company.
I was.
But they're scared to increase the price by $2.
Yeah.
I don't understand that.
It's emotional.
Yeah.
They're afraid that it's a confidence thing almost, right? They're like,
I mean, it's scary.
Yeah, it's scary to say I'm going to go raise my prices. What if no one buys my product anymore because I raised my prices $2?
But what do you say about emails all the time? Nobody remembers.
I agree
now,
with
I
you.
think different a little bit with Wolves. You guys are a much larger brand, and you guys are still doing it. Everybody does it, but I think majority of small brands, like nobody goes to your website every single day to see what's the price. People don't do that. When they're ready to buy and they're in the exploratory phase, they're going to go and look at it. And if your conversion rate drops down, you look at a different value or a different price.
Yeah, or you just test.
Look at what's happening with streaming services right now. Netflix or Apple TV or whomever raises their prices, and people scream for about a week.
But then they just keep paying.
Yeah. And some people do cancel, right?
Yeah.
I think I canceled Disney Plus because they're increase. But all the other streaming services I have, I think I've had like my third price increase from Netflix in a year.
Yeah.
I'm
Netflix,
still subscribing.
Amazon, they're all.
What did they reported the most new subscribers last quarter?
Oh, really?
Yeah. So they're moving forward. Yeah, Disney is on the decline. I also canceled Disney because I couldn't find value.
Right. Yeah.
I didn't find value anymore.
Yep.
So that's like we don't have Apple TV and we don't have, or Apple Plus and we don't have Disney Plus. There's not value on the Disney Plus like for kids?
I didn't feel like there was.
Not a lot of content.
Yeah.
No.
Besides the Marvel stuff, like that was the only reason we watched. My kids don't really watch the Disney stuff. So like there was not much interest.
It's just not there.
And it's very expensive. I can't remember how much it was, but it was expensive. And I looked at it and I was like, why do we need this? Let me cancel. I do that quite often in my house with streaming services. I cancel things without telling anybody. And I just wait to see.
Wait to find out.
I just wait to see if anyone actually cares.
If no one says anything.
I canceled
try that,
Showtime maybe like 4 months ago. My wife hasn't said anything in 4 months. So I was like, all right then. Like I just do it.
Yeah.
Why? I just cancel them and just see what happens, right?
I love it.
It's a little thing. All right. I want to kind of go into psychology because something that I love about psychology of pricing is that when brands talk to their customers, they talk to them often about either the past, present, or future to justify pricing or influence the perception of pricing of why they're doing it. And if you think about the past, they're talking about highlighting heritage or founder stories versus the present, which is showcasing quality, or the future, which is talking about the brand vision, the future sustainability, for example, is a perfect idea. When you guys think about that, like when you think about a premium product, and I want to start with you, Greg, because I think you have history working in premium product companies, right? Your last company before Woobles was Milk Bar, or is it Milk Bar? Milk Bar, right? Yep. Which is a very expensive ass cookie. Before that, you worked at Fender, which is the premium leading guitar company. If you think about it, you've worked at premium companies. Why have you been attracted to? Is there a reason you've been attracted to them? Have you learned a lot from being in the premium spot?
Go. Yo, listen up, let me put you on game. OmniSend's got the tools and everything that they claim. Email, SMS, yes, all in one. E-com brands love it cause it gets work done. Yeah, 125K worldwide. Reviews so high, got them beaming with pride. And their stars are 4.8, no joke. Shopify back, so you know it's dope. Automation so slick, like a self-driving whip. Bring them back with a click, never losing the grip. Easy migration, yeah, that's no stress. Support so strong, got me feeling real blessed. No sneaky fees, no surprise in sight. Ain't calling it alignment just to raise the price. So if growth is the goal and sales on your mind, OmniSend's got the tools, now go get what's mine. Hit OmniSend.com today and watch your brand take off, okay? Oh yeah, and tell them Awesome sent you.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate to work at a few very premium brands and some leaders in the space. I worked at Fender, as you mentioned, Milk Bar. I also worked at Oakley, the sunglasses manufacturer, which, it's a $200 pair of sunglasses. And so the psychology of pricing there, I think that every brand was different in how they handled that. And we were talking very different price points. Fender's guitars went all the way up to $10,000 for some of our custom shop guitars and beyond. I think the psychology of pricing in a premium brand, first and foremost, it's aspirational. You can't ever lose the aspirational nature of your product if you're premium. And that aspiration is different. At Fender, we used a metric called share of stage to measure our brand health, saying how many people are playing Fender guitars on Coachella stages, Lollapalooza. We would actually systematically measure that. Wow. And that was a measure of brand health in terms like how effective was our brand marketing. So you had to keep that aspiration. And so for us at Fender, share of stage kept the aspiration alive. At Milk Bar, we had a lot of celebrity endorsements. Taylor Swift posted about us, I think this was 2023, on her birthday. She had her cake, our Milk Bar cake in her birthday post. Wow. We blew up because of that. So you've got to retain that aspirational nature. The interesting thing is Fender and Oakley even had some more budget-friendly options, but we were very careful about how we curated where those price points hit and what was the jump between series, what was the jump to get up to the American-made guitars versus the Mexico-made versus the Chinese-made guitars. There was a lot of work that went into that, not only in what is everyone else doing? I think that's something that a lot of entrepreneurs in the D2C space don't do enough of, is just look at the area around you. What are other people in your category doing and what are they pricing out? I don't think enough of that happens, but also, what does your consumer see as a reasonable step up to get the quality and the value and the prestige of owning that premium product, right? In some cases, it can be as much as 2 or 3 times as expensive. In other cases, it's not as much. A Milk Bar cake was about 3 times as expensive as something you could go get from the grocery store. Probably more than that, actually. But a Fender guitar was not 3 times as much as something you could get in from other brands that were at a more reasonable price point. But I will say one thing about price points is, well, the thing that I've learned is the higher you go, as long as you maintain that story. The Fender Custom Shop was a perfect example of that. The backlog when I was at Fender around the custom shop was years long to get a guitar that starts at around $5,000.
Wow.
And people lined up to try and get them. So and we maintained that through careful storytelling about what the custom shop was about. The builders that built the guitars had their own social media profiles. They would show off their builds. They would talk about their background, that aspirational prestige of it. Yeah. We had to make real investments in. Exactly.
Yeah. It's actually kind of shocking when you think about that psychology, past, present, future. It's all about what's the history? Why should I get it? Because of the current economics of social and influencers, whatever. And then what is the vision of that, right? Like, what are you trying to get to, right? When you think about Battle Box, I think you guys have your own version of it, right? Like, you guys are in that, you guys are a premium box too. Like, what are you guys, $150 bucks?
$175.
Yeah, that's a very expensive recreational box.
Yeah.
Because it's not a need to have, it's a want to have.
Yeah,
product.
it's definitely, it's tough to say that it's on the need scale when it's $200 a month.
Yeah.
With tax and shipping.
And it's a mystery box, so it can't be a need to have because, it's a want to have.
A lot of, this is this researching and spending time on this and then just listening to both of you, like, it's a pretty eye-opening, I don't have many eye-opening episodes, but I'm taking a lot in right now because, man, like so much of our decisions is pure economic based, right? And then talking about price changes, we did a price adjustment of $5. So in February, we went from $170 to $175, and we hadn't done a price jump in 3 years. The reality is, we should have probably went with a little bit more. The prices have definitely raised more than that. Yeah. And I don't know if it was lack of confidence, but we probably should have gone 10, could have argued 15, maybe 12, but we went 5. It still took us to, acceptable margin range, but the 5, like, I don't want to say we were losing sleep over it, but it was not an easy decision to pull the trigger. And now we communicated, we explained, we told the story, and we had zero drop off. Everybody understood. I mean, you're paying $170 pre-tax, pre-shipping. Now you're paying $175. It's not a big change, right? Yeah.
You definitely didn't raise prices enough.
Yeah.
That was my takeaway was like, because we should have raised it 10, 12 at minimum.
Yeah.
We raised it 5 and no one batted an eye and everyone understood.
Yeah.
Like no one's under a rock. They've seen the last 3 years. They know costs have gone up. And it was immediately afterwards, like we're reading all the comments everywhere and we're like, fuck.
And what was the last time before that you guys raised prices?
We raised prices in early 2022. No, July 2022.
July 2022. Okay.
So it's been a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So even from an inflationary standpoint, you didn't exceed.
No, and we yeah. Bad move.
No, it's interesting. You know, there's a saying they say on pricing that if you don't get some customers to complain, you're not priced high enough.
Right.
Like your pricing should hit a place where a small portion of your people are going to complain, and it may even deter people away from buying because of that. But that's good because you need to have a little bit of friction, and that friction is caused because you're pricing it right. Because the majority isn't going to care, but there's that small majority that will care. But that was okay because they weren't a good customer for you anyway.
I mean, we get price complaints. I would say on average, there's probably, I don't know, half a dozen.
But sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying every day, probably half a dozen comments are removed. We're like, just 175 a month. Sorry, I want to feed my family this month.
But they weren't the good customer for
right.
you.
They're not the ideal.
Right. Yeah.
They're not our ICP.
The thing is, like, I think what brands miss, and I think Greg, you might have a lot of experience with that. The price is not the problem. The communication around why the price hike happens is the problem. If you go to a bunch of people today on your subscriber base, whomever the company is, and you say, hey, just like you, we're dealing with increased costs with everything. And now we're just getting hit by tariffs on top of X, Y, and Z. Most regional people are going to say, you know what, it sucks. In this case, I really love BattleBox. And I'm actually going to support them because they make my month every month.
Yeah.
But I think when brands try to be sneaky in price increases,
that's definitely not the right
that's
move.
when it's a really, really bad.
No,
move.
and we've seen so many D2C brands do that.
It's terrible.
But there's two different things. There's price increases on a subscription product, right? Which is one thing, right?
Yeah.
But just straight one-time purchases, most people won't even remember what your
I
price
don't know
is.
how if you have to really communicate.
That's different. Yeah,
No, you don't have to communicate a price increase to that. You just literally increase the product.
Reoccurring.
Yeah, on reoccurring products. Do you guys have a reoccurring product at Wibbles?
We don't have a subscription. No.
Okay. Will you have a subscription? It sounds like such a great subscription box product.
It's something we've talked about. I think that the road for us is so long right now, and what we're doing right now, there's a world that it could be worth the time and focus, but we just have so many bigger things to take on right now. But it's an interesting place for us to get into.
Yeah, like an exclusive Wibble of the month.
I feel like Eleni would subscribe to it.
No, you know what? Here's the thing. I don't know because there's something, because as Greg and I were talking and I was watching Eleni go through that experience from purchasing to using the videos, it was one of these things to me that she was so excited which character she was falling in love with. Yeah. And there's something there that I think you lose.
See. There was an emotional connection.
Yeah, it was an emotional connection because she was talking about, because she did a turtle. And one of the reasons she did the turtle is because our nephew was at that moment in time obsessed with turtles. So it was like, hey, I want to do this for him.
Yeah.
And create that connection. And she was all into it. It took her, a few hours to get through it and everything. But I think she enjoyed the fact that she could connect with a character and make her own.
Well, I think that your wife is a perfect example of why we think about price. We definitely do. And we have pricing strategy in place. But I will say one of the things that we focus on more is what we call success rate, which is just simply finishing your first kit, right? Our customers are not very price sensitive once they've finished their first kit. They finish that first one. They get that feeling of fiero that I referenced earlier. And from there, we sold Lord of the Rings collector's boxes for $200 a pop and sold out of them in an hour. So when we have people that finish the kits and they get connected to the brand, and this goes back to, I think, to what you were talking about, is that the people that are your core customer really don't care that much. If you become part of their identity, if you become part of something that they enjoy, they get a feeling of fiero or satisfaction or personal identity out of. Was another thing we focused on hugely at Fender, was turning people from playing guitar to self-identifying guitarists, price goes out the window very quickly. And so the psychology of pricing also very much depends on how do you connect with your customer, right? I mean, John, with the Battle Box, if you have the customers like, I love this box and I get the value out of it every month, you could increase the price by $25 and they'd probably say,
they still see the value.
I mean, there's probably a core segment, if he doubled the price, they wouldn't leave.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not saying they all would stay, but there would be a good proportion of people that, especially in that VIP group, most likely that they would stay.
Yep.
I think it's interesting. You know, one of the things that you guys are talking about is really about the setting the price. Now, here's a question I want to ask. What about accidentally pigeonholing yourself in brand value and brand value because your pricing's too high or too low, right? Can you pigeonhole yourself? Have you guys seen this before?
I think subscription products get into that. I think that's probably, you probably have the hardest journey on that because to what we already talked about, the one-time purchase, you're not as sensitive to. But when I know it's coming every month or week or what have you, I'm the kind of person that I annualize everything I spend in my head. If I know it's $200, all right, $2,400 a year, that's what I'm spending. Yep. I think about that with my car payment. I think about that with my mortgage. And so recurring is definitely where you start, baselines it really tightly, I think, at least more tightly than an individual purchase does.
Because you're used to it. It's building a habit.
And that was part of our fear and lack of confidence. Yeah, $5, but that is $60 a year. So it's like, okay, that's $60 is $60.
But what about products that start too low? Well, I mean, I think we've got some topics later on about like product pricing, right? And watching some of the journeys that have gone up with pricing or come down with pricing, I guess. I guess the real question is like, it is fear. It's psychology, but I guess it's fear of your current customer base and having to find a new one. Is that what it really comes down to, maybe?
I think so. I think a lot, if we're still talking about subscriptions, a lot of them, you know, we're the exception of the rule at 170, right? Like the sweet spot is high teens, low 20s. Yeah. And I think a lot of them are in a tough spot. We're talking about, it wasn't on camera, but we were talking when Anthony was here. So Boudet Bag was a competitor. We know her from just the conferences. She got a deal on Shark Tank. And they raised prices. And, you know, I think he said it was she started at 2 for $12. And by the end of it, she was at 2 for $24.
Wow.
And at that point, it's a different buyer, right? The person that's buying 2 pairs of underwear for $12 and 2 for $24 is not the same person. Yeah, I don't know. It's tough.
I think you got to identify who you're chasing. Let's say you guys had the conversation of, let's introduce a $100 box. Maybe it's not a replacement, but it's additional. Yeah. Who are you trying to win there? Right. What does the TAM look like for that? Is that a customer that we want to have? Right. And I think quite often, especially when it's very different depending on, are you raising prices or lowering prices? But if you say we're going to introduce a product at a lower price point to try and expand the business, you really have to think about your business quite differently at that point. Not just from the economic standpoint, the psychological piece of it. At my time at Fender, the most expensive guitars we sold were multi-thousands of dollars. The least expensive were $100.
And I'm not your core ICP because I shake my head when I hear multi-$1,000 guitars. I'm like, there's ones for $200 that I've seen. You know, they look good enough. You know, and I know that means something different, right? Yeah.
But you're targeting a very different type of consumer at that point. You have to think about, how do you speak to those customers differently? What are the ways that we're going to connect with them? All the things that work for your business right now likely will not work for that type of customer. Talking about the tone wood of rosewood versus ebony to someone who's never picked up a guitar before is wasted effort. But for the guy who's going to drop $10,000 on a custom shop guitar, that's time well spent.
Yeah. So underpricing suggests lower quality or like a commodity status, right? It's too easy to attain. And then overpricing could alienate, and that's kind of where John's going, is alienate potential core customers, right? So like there's definitely some of those things that come into place when you're thinking about the real world. The question I have, and you mentioned the economic pricing, which I thought was really interesting because I have never heard of that before. Economic pricing versus psychology-based pricing. Maybe I've always been more of a psychology-based mindset when it comes to pricing. But talk about economics. When you say economics, is it really just healthy margins and, you know, making sure that I have a healthy margin, a good perceived value is like the two things that correlates with an economic pricing?
I think it's a very Excel-driven math exercise of, okay.
Like, here's my COGS, here's what it is. I need to make this much margin in order to be successful.
Yeah, and that's a good exercise to go through. Don't get me wrong. You should do that exercise as you look at pricing, particularly when you're starting a new business or you're going into a new product category. What's the real COGS of this? And not just on a per unit basis. Do I have to buy new machinery? Do I need a new factory? Do I need a new partner? There's all those things that need to go into it. then you need to rationalize it and say, okay, but will someone pay this minimum that I have to hit? But then also, what will they actually pay? And that's where you really get into the power of the psychology to say, again, what's the difference between Nikes versus, the Cole Haans and the Adidas of the world? It's the psychology of it. What are people willing to buy? And that's where I think the best marketers, they know their customers, they understand what motivates them, they understand the value of their brand. And sometimes it is a value brand that they provide, right? Shaq's shoes are famous, right? For putting shoes on kids that wanted an aspirational shoe. He sold millions of pairs of shoes on the back of that. So just knowing your customer, knowing why they would buy, you should do that Excel-driven exercise of minimum viable pricing. And then you need to rationalize and say, will someone buy that? But also, would they pay more if I can tell that story in a compelling way?
It's interesting.
And we're just, this is eye-opening because we are very good at the economic pricing.
So are you spreadsheeting it and just here's what my stuff costs, this is how much it is, this is how much we need to make in order to pay our people, pay our advertising, and make this much profit? Is that what you're basically breaking down?
We're a little bit unusual on a D2C brand that we're having to reinvent ourselves. Every single month is a new, 6, 7, 8 items, right? But the procurement team, they have a spreadsheet and they have budgets per tiers, and they're not going, if they can spend $90 on this, they're not going to come in at 82.
Nope.
They're going to spend 90, or they're going to say, hey, we can get this done for 91, right? It's pure just spreadsheet formula. And we're never looking at it afterwards. We'll look at these 7 items, but look at this item. It's a Doug Marcotte, a limited edition knife exclusive through us. The guy gets us 10 million views every time we drop a video of his. Maybe it's actually...
Yeah, you spend a little bit more here, but
maybe it can have a lot of more
value.
We don't have to put that 7th item in because we're giving that Doug knife.
I was about to say, I think that... go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I was thinking that your model is so unique to me that I think if you just have one really brilliant item in every box, you're going to be fine, right? Your unboxing experience, I think, would very much, everyone's looking forward to that every month. And as long as you have one item that's just really
you got to have a
awesome,
home run. Yeah,
as long as there's one. And I think a lot of boxes are like that, right?
Yeah.
But as long as you have that one, it's okay, let's swing a little farther on the cost on this one, but we know we're going to have to save over here, and that's okay because we're getting this really premium thing in that box. As long as you've got one where someone's going to remember, remember July and I got that, a brilliant knife that just looked amazing, is you hit that once. You don't need to hit every single one of them, but you better have at least one every time the box goes out.
Or you're in trouble.
I think you're not giving yourself enough credit. No.
Thanks, man.
No.
So
Here's why.
We're trying to question his life right now.
No. But and I think I hope you agree. So you have your economics, and we talk about it a lot, you and I, and 100% there. But when it comes to psychology of pricing, a lot of subscription companies are based on, hey, if you allow us to curate a product for you, we're going to give you a bundle that you're going to save a bunch of money on. That's a psychological thing. Yeah. So, hey, Mr. Prepper, Mr. Survivalist, Mr. Outdoorsman, you can go buy all of these products and spend $250, or you can let our top line team of Curran, of Austin, of all of these people that are spending the time, and you guys tell the story really well, to what Greg was saying, to procure these products that you're going to love at technically free of charge, and we're going to give you the best experience possible every single month. There's that psychology. Now, where I think you don't get, and where you're being hard on yourself, is you don't get onto the details. What are the levers that we can kind of push, maybe what Greg, you're alluding to with the Amazon tests, that we can test to what triggers people and be a little bit more brave to do it. But you have psychological, you just don't have the details. Kind of like you have the main category of psychological, you just don't get into the subs.
I'm just not getting, okay. Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think that's fair.
Yeah. That's so interesting though. Like the way that you have to think about the psychology, like you just nailed it with economic pricing. Pricing is what's driving the decision, when psychology is the other way around. Like, what can I create by focusing on the pricing or the product instead of focusing on the pricing of the product? I don't know how to explain it. Like the economics of the product, like what it costs versus like what can I create into value? I mean, that's kind of what you said. Like you put a high value item that might be a range, instead of saying it needs to be, $82 a box. Maybe you're like, hey, it can be 65 to 94. Knowing that you'll average out around 82 or 83 or whatever, knowing that they might stretch and make a bigger decision because, well, they see a value that might really excite the customers. And part of your thing is retention of your subscription, right?
Yeah.
Like they might feel value in that next one and say, wow, that was so good that might keep me one extra month.
Right. They're going to stay for X
Because
amount of months later.
another one might come in again.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm curious, you've got a procurement team. Do you have a merchandising team?
Mhm.
Interesting. I think that's I'd not say go out and hire someone, but I think it's something to think about is you've got a procurement team that's finding the items for you, but do you have, I don't know what it's to call it, but the tastemaker of the group of what should be in here? What do our consumers care about? Are you looking at the feedback? And I'm sure every single month you've got people posting about what they get in their box. What are people excited about? What are the core attributes that every single month people are talking about? This was an awesome item, and this was something that got me really excited,
So yeah, I get. So you would categorize that as the merchandising team?
I think traditionally that's what a merchandising team would do.
We do, but it's all just grouped into the procurement.
Sure,
team.
yeah. Okay.
Just because we're not very big.
It's kind of like your customer research group almost.
I think merchandisers are fit a lot of areas. It's about, understanding your margins, understanding the psychology of the pricing, understanding your consumer and why are they buying, why are they staying. I think the best merchandisers I've ever worked with straddle those three areas really well.
Yeah.
And digital merchandising is one thing, like what do you put on the website? But like the actual merchandising job as it exists within brands and retailers is about kind of being the tastemaker of what goes on the shelf and what am I putting in front of the consumer's eyes? Who are the people that make the decision at the Banana Republics of the world of what's in the window and what's going to draw that person in? That's a real job that exists. I think for you guys, if that exists across many different groups, that's great. As long as you're thinking about that and really making those decisions based on not just, hitting the core economics, but what do people get excited about? I mean, that's the kind of thing I'd be like, hey, you're responsible for making sure we don't churn people because they need to see value every single time that box shows up at their door.
So we have an interesting process, which our procurement team hates. I mean, to be fair, they don't hate it. They respect it. They like it. But so the procurement team is finding all the potential products, right? Yeah. It's got to pass our expert tests. So Brandon or Austin, both of them test it. Okay. They film content. They have the ability to just say nay to it and it's out. Yeah. Passes that test, it goes to the economic test, right? So our controller, CFO, they're all reviewing it, deciding if it makes economic sense. So if it gets both of those yeses, at that point it goes to a panel of 9 internal. Yeah. And it's products pitched, anonymous voting, 2 no's or greater, it's out.
Wow. That's a high bar.
Wow. Yeah. So 7 out of 9 has to approve it.
Yeah. But I'm just trying to think through like your merchandising question. I'm like playing it in my head. Like, are we doing that? But can we do a better job of that?
It sounds like you're doing it.
Yeah.
You're doing it proactively. Are you also doing it retroactively to say,
what hit?
I don't know, like, can we score every item in a box and say, hey, last month, let's say there was 8. I don't know how many items, but let's say there were 8 items. Out of 10, how many hit a 10, 9, 8, and you base that on consumer feedback and social views?
So we're doing it, but there's not a formal I'm a very process guy. Yeah. We don't have a formal process. It doesn't sit in a spreadsheet or a data repository somewhere, and it should. That's actually really good.
It's one thing we're trying to get better at. We're not good at it either. The rules, I think, I should say we're getting better at it. But that retroactive launch recap of what did people buy? Why did they like it? Was the pricing good? What were the things that people were talking about? And all the data stuff is pretty easy to get to, but it's the qualitative pieces that really matter. Right. And like our Lord of the Rings drop, we were really looking at the feedback of what did people care about with the design of the box or the accessories that came in or the particular kits that were in it. I think that retroactive look informs your future merchandising strategy and your pricing strategy so much. It's worth doing. And again, we're trying to get better at it as well. It's difficult, and the discipline is difficult to look at. So
you're essentially surveying post-sale or post-subscription, asking what was your favorite, what was your worst kind of deal, ranking them almost?
We probably should survey our customers on that. We're not doing that, but we are looking at things like social commentary. We get a lot of social commentary when we drop new products. So we will look and say, okay, we had a thing after the One Ring from Lord of the Rings that was in the box. People were blowing up about that. So like, okay, we know that was the thing.
Yeah, that was the thing.
And it was only available in the box, and people loved the design of the box. So our designer Haley did a freaking brilliant job on that. So I think that retroactive look just informs the future so much for you, that having a formal process on that, it is a little laborious and it is a little tedious. And you do have to read between the lines a bit, because
you're guessing a little bit. You have to.
I think consumer surveys matter. We use eCommerce and it's great for us to look at that stuff. But I also think, like, man, just get in the commentary. It's like, that's so underrated. And also talk to your CX teams. What are people emailing about? We get a shocking number of people who email us every time we have a drop. Not just about when's my order going to arrive, but what's in this, and kind of get some details on this. So it's not easy, but it is, again, it's a great strategy to really understand. Like, you might find, like, man, people don't really care about knives at all. Every time we go for a knife, again, this is anecdotal, I don't know, but let's just say people don't really care about knives. We put them in there, they're high cost, but no one really talks about them every time we drop. That would be an informative thing. Like, well, maybe knives aren't the thing. Maybe it's something else. And I think that discipline and that rigor, that's going to help. To me, that's a retention tactic.
Yeah, like we know we get the feedback, we talk about it, but my biggest takeaway is, like, getting some sort of qualitative score. Having that score, that's the
like
game
a box
changer.
score.
For sure.
Post box score.
Like literally a box score, and a by item score and a box score.
I think that's also being honest with yourself as a brand, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're able to get that feedback, and if you can qualitative it, make it like a real thing, like you can be honest about a product and quality.
Yeah.
But not just that. I think the customer at that point feels involved, and they know that you're listening.
So, okay, so we attempted a version of this. We were sending out so it was active members in the community, in the Facebook group, which has, I think, roughly 10,000 people in there. We would drop there after everybody had gotten their box, the week after they had a chance to look at it, these surveys. And it was a pretty, intense survey, 21 questions. So 7 items, 3 questions for each item, just to try to better understand. We weren't coming up with a score, but we did have a rating system. So we were moving in the right direction to what you're describing. But the reality is, literally every month, less and less people did that. Like, it was just literally watching the chart of open rate, but also click rate and completion rate. Like, it was getting less and less and less.
Too tedious? Was it too many questions you're asking?
I mean, those questions, they truly were needed, though, right? It's 7 items. We had 3 questions that kind of helped shape. But it was tough.
Could you focus instead of focus on all the items? Can you focus what's your favorite item, what's your least favorite item?
Maybe it was simple as that, right?
Yeah,
it became a chore,
or just pick one thing.
Yeah,
it doesn't even have to be all of them.
Yeah,
Go
ahead.
Well, going back to psychology, it feels really special the first time a brand asks you for feedback about your products.
Yeah.
The second and the third and the fourth and the fifth don't feel as special. They don't. And that's
No,
the reality of it. So that's where
maybe you should be segmenting your group of people.
get into sampling.
That's
like,
what
hey,
say.
let's make sure we hit at least first time every month. Like I would, for your brand, I'd be like, hey, first box always. That should be every time they get their first box. We're asking them. That should be a thing. And then from there, it's like, maybe it's every 3 or 4 months we're asking them, and sample it and really segment it so that you're not hitting them again and again. I think that's where you can get out of that, because that's I wouldn't have thought of it, but it makes perfect sense as you say it, that if you're asking every month, I'd be like, it was special the first time. And these people are impatient. They'll be like, I told you that I never want to see this thing again.
And you're asking me again.
When you guys made that decision about that product 4 months earlier. Probably.
Right. No, that's
but
a
the
fair
other thing
point.
too is, like, you're asking everybody, those 10,000 people, give us feedback. I don't feel special.
Yeah. You got to segment down to core people.
Yes, the segmenting thing, and then you're gonna have a high take on it.
And you got your VIPs who are more likely going to do it. I mean, you could even segment down to people who actually responded, and people who don't respond, you can get rid of them.
Man, I'm excited. This episode's going to a lot of my team.
All right. We're going to go to the next part of this because we're running into some time, but I want to make sure that we go over this because I thought this was fun. We did a little research. Everyone did a little bit of research on some fun brands and examples of brands that we saw in the market that went from premium to cheap or cheap to premium. And we had some stories and lessons that we learned. So I'm going to start off with one that I think is really fun because, for those that don't know, one of the things I did do in my career was I used to own a streetwear men's clothing store, right? It's actually here in Las Vegas. It was probably over there somewhere. I can't really tell, but it's dark, but it was over there somewhere over in Spring Mountain. And, one of the cool things, one of the brands that came into picture, which was really weird because when I was growing up as a young child, was a brand called Champion. Champion was a brand that you wore. It was cheap athletic gear. You
Dude, I
bought it
love
at
Champion.
Kmart. It was like the thing you'd buy for $2 for $20 or $10 or whatever. It was no big deal. But it was somewhere around 2015, 2014, something happened with Champion. Champion suddenly started collaborating with streetwear companies because streetwear was like about the grunge and like, you know, being at the core of like this, you know, it's kind of like the skater world combined with like the fashion world. That's what streetwear really was. And suddenly they started to collaborate with some of the largest companies. We even collaborated. I remember we dropped this Champion hoodie. It was a Champion. We just bought the blanket and then put our own embroidery on it, and it sold really crazy, and people loved it. Oh, it's Champion. And then we saw Supreme and like all these big brands do it. And I think it was really interesting as you look at Champion because they started off as a cheap brand just to get into market. They built their business for years, and it took them years until one time they hit the right collaboration, the right movement, and their focus changed where they started to actually take this whole idea from functional, budget-friendly sporting to like this trendy label ultimately. And I think it was a really interesting story to see. And I bet you anyone listening our age remembers what Champion really was and what it is now.
So present day Champion, this is just naivety on my end. Present day Champion is more
is a good product now. It's considered a high-end quality product. You see collaborations. It's a great blank thing. And you see high-end companies doing collaborations with them these days.
I bought some Champion shorts like around the house, sleeping shorts Champion, because in my head I'm like, oh, Champion.
Yeah, they're cheap.
I had them when I was a kid.
They were my gym shorts.
Yeah, that's right.
What a powerful brand name.
It is.
The more you say it,
it took time. It took a long time. I'm just saying, like, Champion. I still remember Kmart. Like, I don't even know, are Kmart still in existence anymore?
I don't think so.
But Kmart. That was where you bought Champions because it was the cheapest.
And baseball cards.
It was basically a no-name brand back then.
Yeah.
And they eventually figured it out. They stood the test of time. They survived long enough for someone to pick them up and made them relevant. And suddenly celebrities were wearing, I remember celebrities were wearing him. All people started wearing him, and it was like a cool thing to wear Champion. And it was really weird, confusing to me because of my age that these young kids were thinking that this was a premium brand.
I'm a cool dad. I got Champion.
I'm a cool dad. I got lots of Champions. I bought them at Kmart years ago, you know?
Yeah.
But it wasn't the same. They collaborated, they evolved, they changed. Their product's not the same Champion that you're thinking in your head. When you think Champion, you think mesh, like really thin mesh shorts. That's not them anymore.
Yeah.
It's like high-end, like good stuff now.
Yeah, the shorts I have are pretty nice.
Yeah, I mean, the shorts are nice, the basketball ones. All right, Amer, I gave you a one that to go off and go research.
Yeah, so car manufacturer, actually something you're very...
I gave you this one on purpose because I think it's a fascinating story because back in the 80s, people called these a pile of crap.
Yeah, Hyundai.
Yeah.
So Hyundai actually penetrated the American market to be this small family car that anybody could afford. But actually they entered the market with Kia. Kia entered a little bit later, both South Korean companies, and they wanted to take the market share. So you had the Japanese manufacturers, the Nissans, the Toyotas.
Yeah, it was Honda, but they did a italicized the age. So we're a new company.
So like for 15 to 20 years, they were sub-premium brand and actually even lower than Toyotas and the Hondas. But they did a couple of things that were very interesting in their reinvention. So the first thing that they did is they actually acquired Kia.
Yes.
So they acquired Kia, and what happened with Kia, they kept Kia, you could argue otherwise today because they look pretty nice, as a cheaper brand alternative. Yeah. And then they kept Hyundai as a higher tier, the Honda, the Toyota alternative. And then they said, you know what? Toyota has Lexus. We're going to have Genesis.
Right.
Yep.
So now they covered the entire spectrum of vehicles. And the interesting part is they were still a few $1,000s cheaper than a Toyota. They were still a few $1,000s cheaper than a Lexus. But every single car, which was different than a BMW or Mercedes or whatever else, always came fully loaded. So within $10,000 difference, you always got more than the premium European or the premium Japanese car.
And they had the ultra warranty with it too, right? Like the
10
10-year,
years,
100,000.
Crazy
I
warranty.
remember that.
And they had that across all of their brands, including Genesis, which was unheard of.
Yeah.
And today, I think they took the most share from Toyota. Nissan is struggling, and I think they have a
Well,
lot.
Nissan, Honda, and who? Someone else is
Mitsubishi?
merging. What is it?
Mitsubishi, was it?
No, Nissan, Honda. Maybe it's Mitsubishi. They're merging right now.
Mitsubishi.
They're in a big
I didn't know that.
conglomerate merge. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Nissan's about to run out of money.
Yeah.
Right? Mitsubishi's been when's the last time you've seen a Mitsubishi on the road? They used to be the most popular thing back in the day.
Remember the
And then
Eclipses?
Honda
Spider
is struggling to
Eclipses?
find
Sick.
expansion, right? So they're all bringing them together, merging right now.
Now, to also tie this into the psychology of pricing, one of the reasons they also did this is you couldn't sell a Hyundai as a premium and a low budget option. Now, when you go to a dealer, it's a Kia Hyundai dealer, just the way it is a Jeep, Dodge, whatever. Yeah. And you can show
Ford
two
and
different
Lincoln.
brands.
Yeah.
Which one do you want? And it becomes a perceived value play without devaluing the premium brands.
Yeah, it's like Chevrolet, GMC, Cadillac,
Yeah.
right? They're all the same car often that there's just 3 versions of that's basic, mid-grade premium, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of wild how that's happened. And you know, a new Cadillac Escalade is $175,000 now.
That is crazy.
$175,000 for an Escalade. That Escalade used to be $60,000 back in the day.
Yeah. And when we
that's-
say back in the day, we're talking 10 years.
No, we're not talking that long ago.
yeah,
I'm not trying to age
Back in the
myself.
day.
Yeah. 10 years ago they were. I mean, I was in the car industry for many years ago. And it's been a while, but like I was part of that Kia and evolution watching. And dude, Kia used to be a joke.
Yeah.
Kia used to be, you drive a Kia, it's a $5,000 car. You bought a because you can't afford anything else.
Kias and Hyundais, they're cool looking cars now.
Yeah.
It's really blown my mind.
When Telluride came out, I was like, wow. Now, what you will sense is when I was buying my car, actually, like I love the look of the Telluride, but when you get in, you feel the Kia.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
It's still there.
Yeah.
It's still
but
there.
it's great price. It's great value.
Yeah,
And
it's
they have
good
a vested
value.
interest in making sure that you do still feel that.
Feel the Kia.
Yeah.
100%.
They could make it feel nicer.
100%.
They will not. Yeah.
But for 10 years, 100,000 miles, you got a warranty behind it that makes you feel safe.
But you get into a Genesis, it's harder to tell.
The Genesis are nice.
Oh,
yeah.
they're really nice. Yeah.
All right. John, you got a story here. This one's interesting. I'd love to hear this one.
Oh, yeah. Juicy Couture.
Yeah. Remember everybody, all the girls used to wear Juicy?
Yeah.
It was
Remember
it.
that? It was it.
Yeah, so early 2000s, their velour tracksuits. Paris Hilton, Jennifer Lopez, Britney Spears, they all rocked them. Luxury loungewear, bold logo, 200 plus for a hoodie. Totally not unusual at all. It was this aspirational pricing, right? And like with the vibes of the celebrities wearing them, it screamed, I made it. But then it got very, very interesting. So they shifted. And the reason the shift in 2003, Liz Claiborne bought them. And they wanted to scale. And how do you scale? You go for a bigger market. So they didn't care about scarcity. So they went from high-end boutiques to department stores to eventually, Kohl's and TJ Maxx. Stuff that was once 200 ended up being around 60, and then they took it even down more. And then they're trying to hit margins, so the quality is dropping the whole time as well. The funny part is though that they moved so much trying to get into this mass market that they lost their core customer. It wasn't the same buyer when the dust settled. The people who wanted status moved on, and the people who can now afford Juicy, they didn't want it anymore either because it wasn't aspirational.
Yeah.
So it's a sad story. They eventually closed all stores in 2014. Authentic Brands now owns them. They've tried reviving it a couple times, but it's nowhere near what it
This is a
ever
pure
was.
classic economic pricing story, isn't
Yeah.
it? Like they saw scale. They said, this is how much money we're making. We're making
Yeah.
so much money. If we just make more, then we'll do it. But they forgot the main reason why people bought.
Yeah, they forgot how they got there.
That's wild. Yeah, you're right. I don't see them anymore. Remember, who's the other one? Who's the one, the MMA company? Affliction. Remember them? They were the male
Oh
version
my
of Juicy,
God.
basically.
Yes, they were.
Remember Ed Hardy?
Yes, Ed, that was the
That's
male.
another one.
Yeah.
What a combo.
But-
What a 1-2 punch of
Yeah.
the
Well,
Affliction top and the Ed Hardy
was
jeans.
a different story though.
What's that?
Affliction. So we were lucky enough to work with MMA Warehouse. MMA Warehouse was the biggest reseller of MMA clothes. Would throw a curveball to MMA Warehouse, and every single brand that they work with, Affliction, so on and so forth, Reebok being the official sponsor of UFC and Dana White saying you can no longer walk out to the octagon without anything except Reebok.
Oh,
And
that'll
now
kill
it's
your
Venom.
business. Wow.
Yeah.
So that's what did him.
That's I mean, like I saw that in real time. An incredible company, Mika. He actually was my first Prela agreement, and we worked very close. And then what we ended up doing is putting up a company that he ended up selling. That was a brand. That was the only way he could keep the business alive. But
That's wild.
I
was
wonder
it.
what the story of I don't know how I remember this. Christian Audiger.
Oh yeah, that's another one too.
Well, he was at Hardy. Christian Audiger.
Yeah.
Christian Audiger is Ed Hardy.
Is Ed Hardy? Yes.
yeah,
That was his brand.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's
I
kind
don't
of
know
wild.
what it's up to.
Greg, you got an interesting one too.
You know, I dearly remember going to the mall
Me too.
and walking by Sharper Image. There was just cool shit inside
It was the
there.
coolest store in the
Just
mall.
Ever.
Yeah, you talk
Well,
merchandising.
Spencer's.
Yeah.
I used to go to Spencer's
Oh,
to
man.
touch all the gadgets, like the crazy stuff that they did, and then Sharper Image because you wanted to go like dream.
It was all aspirational,
Yes.
right? You would
Yeah.
go walk by and there was a $10,000 massage chair.
That was where I saw the first one.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it was just walking into a Sharper Image, man, there's no other way. It was fucking awesome.
Yeah.
They did their merchandising so well. And, you know, look, I mean, the reality is you only do discounts when you have to. And from what I could read, and I think that they had a bankruptcy and they had to figure out how to get it solvent and all this. So they started going towards more mass market stuff. And you know, this is where, you know, I think it's funny. You look at a lot of retailers that we thought would go away. Places like Best Buy have figured out ways to survive,
Yeah.
right? Retail's not dead. Retail's not even close to dead.
Yeah.
But places like Sharper Image that went for this kind of commoditization of products and more accessible price points. I mean, not all that different than Juicy in terms of, well, we have this premium prestige product. We now need to attract a wider audience. We're going to bring in some lower quality, lower price point stuff. And I still remember the last time I walked into a Sharper Image, there was one in the South Coast Mall in Orange County, which is the highest grossing mall in the entire US, if you didn't know.
Wow.
And it was just garbage.
Yeah, they just put anything in there.
It was
right?
cheap $20
Yeah.
trinkets. It was stuff that just looked cheap. It felt cheap. You
It's
didn't
so
have
disappointing because I only have
man.
that experience you talked about where you go into it. And even the Sharper Image catalog.
Yes, I
Of
remember
all
that
the
catalog.
The catalog.
I used to
It
drool
was
over that
so
thing. I
cool.
could never
Same.
afford anything.
And-
Like,
Yeah,
it was
and
too
having
expensive.
that inaccessible stuff was part of the brand
That's
prestige, right?
Sharper Image.
That's part of what makes it aspirational is you have those things. Why does Porsche limit their GT4s to
Yeah.
like 100 units a year? Because it's aspirational, right? There is an idea of like, I can't afford that, but I want to, and I need to,
That
and it
makes
gives me a
sense.
reason to be excited about it. And the Sharper Image, they just lost that. I don't think they have any stores open anymore. I'm pretty sure they shut down during COVID, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
But you know, they didn't have good product in there anymore. It didn't feel exciting to go into their stores. There was really, and obviously, look, the rise of Amazon and the competition from, you know, sellers online, I think very much hurt them. But they really lost what made the Sharper Image special, which was that aspiration of walking into a store and seeing stuff that was just awesome.
Yeah,
I wonder if they would have stayed true to it, if it would have weathered, or if it would have just been chipped away at by the Amazons.
Yeah, maybe. You can still buy Sharper Image name products. I don't think it's actually owned by what it was, but you can buy them on Amazon today.
Yeah.
They're just, I think someone bought the name and said,
right.
this is a good name. And probably people like us, Sharper
Sharper
Image. I
Image.
would probably think it's
Yeah.
cool. I'm pretty sure I have a wine opener from Sharper Image that I bought because I thought, wow, this must be a nice one.
It was great gift stuff. It was great
Yeah.
for the holidays. Just walking in like, let's just find something for $100 at Sharper Image.
Yeah.
Like, you know, Father's Day, I'm sure
And
was huge
they're
for
gonna
them
be
too.
happy.
You're right.
exactly.
Actually, at Mother's Day, I'd go and buy something for my mom from Sharper's Image, like a pillow.
Right.
And I'd be like, wow, I bought a Sharper Image pillow. This is the best pillow in the market.
Yeah.
But it really probably wasn't. But that's how
They
I
also
felt.
had really different stuff. And I think to your point, John, they may not have survived the internet age because I can go and I can find such specific stuff now.
Yeah.
If I want a pillow for a specific issue that I'm having on my back or my neck, I can go find
There's
that
so
online. So they
many.
may
They just
not.
had the one pillow. This is the best pillow.
Yeah, they may not have weathered that, but they definitely.
It's a shame though.
Yeah,
It's a
it is.
good brand.
That was a good one too. There's a lot of things in the 90s and that we look back at and we're like, wow, how did we think this was the best, right? I don't know.
Different world.
Anyways, with that going, I want to invite a mayor over here to talk about. So one of the things we do in this show, Greg, is we always have a game or we do something fun. This week, I thought it would be great because, well, this topic warrants a book. So Mara goes and researches and reads a book, and the book, pricing or psychology book that I asked. So Mara, your corner, sir.
Yeah, I actually mad at myself because I left the book on the table over there, but so I could show it to you guys. But it's called the Handbook.
You want me to grab it?
Want to grab it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
It's
Show off
okay.
that title.
Right on
It's
the table.
okay. It's the pod. People know we're not like some high production
I know,
value.
I know.
Let's get the Good Morning
Yes,
America
right.
moment.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
I'm just disappointed in myself because I
There
had
it is.
prepared it.
Perfect.
But it's a book, a handbook of psychology of pricing, and it's actually to what I mentioned earlier about economics versus psychological pricing. Came from the author Marcus Husman Kopetsky. He's a doctor, has a doctorate. He was always fascinating how pricing worked. The book is very interesting. It is not a book that you read. It's a little bit of a tough read because it just references research papers. And whomever buys the book, they actually get access to his website where anytime there's a new paper published, he adds it to that portal and you can kind of keep up with all this
That's how
research
you
that's
ended up
happening.
on all those research papers when you're talking about going down a rabbit hole.
I mean, and then you kind of start like, I always struggle finishing like research papers because I'll find something really interesting that has nothing to do with my paper. It's like, oh, that is so cool. And I forget about my paper and I go
And just go right
research
down the
that
rabbit
other
hole.
thing. So, but his whole thing was people talk about economics of pricing, people overlook psychology of pricing, but he wanted to talk about and present it in a data form. Like, what are we looking at? And there's things that are very old 20, 30, 40-year-old papers that he read, for instance, to things that are a handful of years old. But pricing or psychology stands the test of time and the test of different channels, whether it's in person or whether it's in online.
Well, I think it's a good point that you're putting it. If the majority of people are looking at stuff from an economic standpoint, being able to put it in a putting psychological in a data standpoint probably makes it easier to comprehend.
It does. And the cool part is, and it's hard not to read it because it's fascinating, especially I think people who are in e-commerce and business, but he does at the end of each section, he gives you a little summary in a little box. This is the result of the study. So I kind of brought a couple of things that are kind of across the board that he mentioned. So in a 2014 study that he referenced it, there's something called the birthday number effect. So what they did is these researchers went to a restaurant and based the last two numbers of pricing of an item on a menu based on the day of their birthday. So for example, if your birthday was on the 18th, they would do $30.18, $30.27, whatever it is.
Huh.
And people who saw the birthday price, even if it was much higher, instead of being $25, they made it $30.18. People actually pick that item more often because they associated that birthday
Like
with
a
their
favorite
lucky number.
Yeah.
Then he also sways off and goes into like Eastern versus Western culture. The number 13 in the Western culture is meant to be typically a negative number because it
Correct.
comes from the Bible and everything like that, where don't quote me on that. I think 4 is a bad number in the Eastern culture. So
There's
depending.
a reason why there is no 4 level in casinos.
Oh, really? I didn't know
the
that.
Chinese
Interesting.
considered bad luck.
Oh,
So you
wow.
don't want to be in any floor on a 40th floor
Yeah,
or
yeah.
whatever. So you'll see it go from 30 to 50.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. So he even breaks it down too. So it's not just how you're pricing, it's also who you're pricing it to. And so if you're maybe selling to a Chinese population, stay away from the number because they're going to think it's a bad number.
Yeah.
They did another crazy study. There's a team in Germany, 2 teams that played each other. One is Schalke 04 and one is BVB 09, Borussia Dortmund. The Borussia Dortmund fans would spend more money if they saw 9 in a menu, where Schalke would spend more when it's 4. When they did the inverse, they wouldn't spend more and they wouldn't buy the same. So all these things that people can relate to, associate with, and the way you can connect to them impacts it. To get a little bit more deeper into e-commerce, which was very, very fascinating. So for example, for the birthday one, actually, even when we're talking to Anthony in the previous episodes, think about maybe creating a collection, for example, in your stores, when you're sending a birthday email out that has the birthday number.
Mm.
and getting
Little
people because
small tweaks.
people will spend more if they see things that they like, their lucky numbers when they were born. I mean, who here hasn't filled out a lottery ticket and not put their birthday?
Dude, I like your room number because it's my birthday.
Is it?
Yeah, that's
right.
why I was all pressed about it.
Oh, interesting.
That's why I got all like, I'm feeling good, main character energy. You know, like that's all because of my birthday number. That's it. Literally.
Yeah.
The one cool things that we get more tactical, and something, Greg, you were alluding to earlier, there's also a test in how do you do assortment of products in your store? Do you want to do brand-based or do you want to do price-based? So, for example, if you are a lower price point company, reseller, whatever, you typically want to do a price. If you're higher, you typically want to do brand-based, because if you're going by brand and they're then comparing brand A to brand B based on price, they're looking at what is perceived value and what is the sacrifice. You mentioned you quantitate everything over a year, whatever that cost might be. So like these are all these like small nuggets that then you have to, as a business person, I was thinking about all my merchants that we work with, like, how does this make sense for this? Who does make it kind of gets your brain really, really going. He had examples of insurance, for example. Like if you're selling insurance, you want to tell somebody it's $30 a month or $1 a day.
Yep.
$1 a day makes it a lot easier. Yep. At what point does it not make sense to say X amount of dollars a day? So typically when you get above $1 a day, the psychology doesn't work anymore.
Correct.
You got to keep it less. So it's a great book.
What do you rate it?
7.5 out of 10.
Whoa, that's it?
Yeah.
You gave other books like 9. You gave Hermosi like 9.8 or something.
Yeah, well, it's a book. It's a book I never read before. The only reason I'm going low on it, I think, if you don't have that tactical mind for business, you don't know what to take away with it. What do you, like, to me, when I came to the birthday stuff, I'm like, man, we could create collection. We can do email flows. We can do a lot of these things. When it came to assortments, well, they also say, he said in the book, when somebody comes and browses, how you do assortment doesn't matter. But when somebody has an intent to buy, maybe a la remarketing, it matters. So then depending on your price, you may want to merchandise retargeting experiences different than first-time experiences.
Yeah.
So there's all these things that I'm like mapping in my head. I was like, I got to talk to my customers about it and start testing these. Because in this book, you probably have 80 A/B tests around pricing alone, if you sit down and think about it.
So what's it called again? The Handbook?
It's a handbook on the psychology of pricing.
Well, there you go.
Really, really.
Thank you for that. I'm glad you learned something cool. And I've learned a lot in this pod.
Yeah,
I feel like
this has been a really
deep pod and a lot of things that we've probably never gone into. But it's something that I've started to notice, like a lot of things that I've noticed as I've gone deeper and deeper into marketing over my years too. So
yeah, I'm going to enjoy watching this myself.
Yeah, and your team is going to watch it. Make sure they give it a big thumbs up. Right?
Share,
post,
subscribe.
Yes, that stuff. With that, it's a wrap. Episode 45, the psychology of pricing, value versus perception. As you just heard John, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share it with your friend, leave us a rating on your favorite podcast listening platform. We're available on TikTok, X, social media, YouTube. Just type in ASOM Pod to find us. And don't forget, we are a video first pod you're seeing here today, where we've got the background of Las Vegas, #1 city in the world. And we fly location to location, shoot videos together. I love how Merrick gives me the dirtiest looks.
Needling him.
I love needling him about this because we want the highest quality experience. So check us out on YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe to awesompod.com to be alerted and join our newsletter. All right, next week we are back, and Greg will be back one more weekend in a row. And we're talking about something really interesting, I think, that we've seen it, which is building a community-driven brand from customers to evangelists. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next pod.
Welcome to the ASOM Pod, where we talked a lot. E-com was the path that we walked a lot. But now the question is, will you subscribe or not? Ha!